live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com. This is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. I'm a little disappointed in you.
What else is new?
Well, I thought that, in deference to our prime minister, you might play the chicken song.
You mean the one that is played at every wedding after everybody's completely drunk? That, oh God!
I just think that the chicken song would be very appropriate for the chicken shit prime minister that we've got.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I mean, I'm sorry to use names, and I try to avoid this, but I don't know what else. I don't know how else you can describe what's going on here. Our prime minister, our beloved prime minister, locks himself into his cozy little taxpayer-funded cottage while thousands of frustrated truckers descend on the city. Perfect. What a perfect time to pull a public disappearing act. What better time to find out that you've been exposed to COVID? Now, he's been tested and found not to have it, but what the heck? It's a wonderful way to avoid meeting those nasty, racist, homophobic, redneck truckers, okay? Anything but meet the truckers. And I'm going to tell you something. If you believe that our prime minister really is self-isolating because he has COVID or has been exposed to COVID, I got some great property for you down there in Florida. Now, I know it's in swampland, but it's at a really good price. And if you buy the prime minister, then you can buy a little bit of swampland in Florida. You know, who was it? Who was Barlaman? It was Bailey, or what was it? Said there's a sucker born every minute. I'm sorry to be profane, but I'm going to use some colloquialisms here. I call bullshit on this one. You know, look, Justin Trudeau caused this convoy, caused this angst with the truckers. Whether you agree with his position or not, he's the cause of it. It is his policies that has prompted this convoy. And one of the things that I find very interesting is that the convoy itself is one thing, but the support that it's getting along the route is quite something else. Something is going on here, and I suspect that's why our chicken shit prime minister has locked himself into his cozy little taxpayer-funded cottage in hiding for 5 days. Very appropriate. And it's his policies that have created this. Now, it's expanded far beyond vaccines, I grant you that. But nonetheless, that's what prompted it. And I'm going to tell you this, his insults, calling all truckers racist and homophobic, and even, I think at one point described them, or some of them, as terrorists. That didn't help either. Didn't help at all. And some of the other leftists are leading lights who have been, denigrating and calling them names. That's not helping either. So when the chickens come home to roost, or the 18-wheelers come to the Capitol, here is the little chicken shit who caused it all, locking himself into his little taxpayer-funded cozy cottage for 5 days. Now, John, you have some information. Apparently, some other cabinet ministers who were with him when they were exposed to COVID, they aren't locking themselves into the cottage or any place. Am I right on that one?
That, according to an article from CTV, yes, sir.
So there were more people than just the prime minister who attended this meeting. Do we know with whom he met?
I didn't read it that closely. No, sorry.
Now, contrast the position, or whatever you want to call it, of our beloved Prime Minister with that of the Leader of the Opposition, Aaron O'Toole. Now, I have been highly critical, and so have many of you who
Absolutely.
are watching, listening, about O'Toole's performance. But I want to tell you, he has come through. I don't know if you've had a chance to read today's edition of the Ottawa Sun. Aaron O'Toole, desperate truckers have a right to be heard. This, I'm going to tell you, here is an editorial or comments that I think everybody should read. Common sense, cool-headed. I can't read it all, but let me hit some of the highlights of what Aaron O'Toole has to say about this. Quote, Canadians have a right to be heard, and not just during an election, but for all times, especially during these extraordinary times. Thousands of Canadians have spent their hard-earned money to come to Ottawa. Any reasonable concerns must be heard. Unquote. Aaron O'Toole, Ottawa Sun today. O'Toole then deplores those who are trying to turn this into violence. He pleads with everybody who will be in Ottawa this week. Please, he writes, remain calm. Protest peacefully. He goes on to say, those of you who do not support the truckers, but still planning to protest in Ottawa, I plead with you to lower the temperature. Stop demonizing your fellow citizens by calling them names. Be respectful, even if you don't agree. O'Toole says we need to come together on this. The time now is not the time to fight with each other. The time now, he says, is to support each other. When the truckers say that they have a list of concerns, they should be heard, says O'Toole. They have a right to be heard. And then O'Toole has a list of 3 things which he says the government could do right now, not only to support the truckers, but simultaneously address the concerns of Canadians who understand vaccines are the best tool available to keep our society and economy open for business. And O'Toole concludes his remarks with this common sense, quote, all Canadians are tired. COVID-19 is a terrible disease, but we cannot allow one of its symptoms to become a country divided against each other. Now is the time for solutions. This is the time for leadership. This is the time for Canadians to come together. Aaron O'Toole, been highly critical. I say hallelujah. Bang on. You're right on. Let me just read you one other little bit of what Aaron O'Toole has got to say. He says, quote, stop demonizing your fellow citizens and calling them names. Be respectful, even if you don't agree. Understand their anxieties and concerns. Stand in support of peaceful protest and condemn violence and hate. How we react now, how we try to understand the concerns of people we deeply disagree with, this is a question of who we are as a country and as a people. Frustration with this pandemic is not an excuse to forget the compassion we normally show for people who are worried or feel ignored. Now is the time to come together. Now is the time. How can we support each other in this terrible time? Aaron O'Toole, I'd like to know what you think. Are you surprised that he's come forward like this? There's a good deal of, don't forget, there's a good deal of risk because most of the media to this point is hotly opposed to this. They're poking fun. I see even on Facebook poking fun. Some of the leading commentators, with the exception of Rex Murphy, I must say. And I said this yesterday, and I agree with Rex Murphy. He says that this protest has become a proxy protest on behalf of many, many angry, frustrated Canadians. And I agree. It's gone, and I said this yesterday, and I firmly believe this. It's gone well beyond just a protest about vaccines. And I think that I think that what we see here, what we see in front of us today is an illustration of not only why the truckers are so frustrated, but why so many of the rest of us are frustrated and angry. Here are people spending a lot of money, taking time off, and most these are not rich people. We're talking about blue collar workers, which many of the elite, as you know, denigrate, laugh at. They're at their own expense. Well, some of the expenses apparently going to be paid, but they didn't know this when they set out. They're coming to Ottawa with what they feel are legitimate protests, and and the man that started this won't see them, won't talk to them. All he's doing is denigrating, insulting them, calling them names, and now gone into hiding. This to me is indicative of what many people feel, that no matter what frustrations that you have, whether they relate to vaccines or hospitalization or anything, cost of living, the cost of meat, that there's nobody listening. Nobody seems to pay any attention. Trudeau has said on more than one, he doesn't care about the economy. Nobody in government, nobody in leadership seems to be concerned about the fact that the cost of meat has more than doubled in about the last 6 months. The cost of food is skyrocketing. Now tell us the latest figures that we have for inflation, about 4.8. Now they're saying it's probably closer to 6 or 7%, and I can agree with that. But nobody in government seems to be concerned. The feeling, and I expressed this yesterday, that we're being led by a bunch of elite fat cats who themselves have never missed a paycheck, and in fact, in many cases, have received 2 raises. Politicians have received 2 raises. Most public servants, 2 raises. Well, the rest of the country has been suffering, losing their homes, losing their jobs, losing hours. I mean, losing hope. But when a group of people with some legitimate concerns at their own expense travel all this way to come here, what happens? The Prime Minister buggers off, goes into hiding, claims that he's going to self-isolate for 5 days. Isn't that what? Don't you feel that? Don't you feel that's a symbol of what one of the things that's so wrong in this country? We've had health experts give us information and that information and so forth. Much of it very advisable. I'm not denying that, but it grates to think that, well, I can't keep my business open. I've put everything I've got into this business. I've put my house on the second mortgage. My wife is out working. We're trying to put food on the table, and the Prime Minister won't even meet us. Won't even address our concerns. Chicken shit Prime Minister. Can you believe it? Let me ask you this: is there anybody out there who really believes that this guy is self-isolating because he's been exposed to COVID? He was tested and found that he does not have COVID. What an opportune time. I mean, okay, he doesn't like blue-collar workers. He doesn't like truckers. He doesn't like farmers. He doesn't like energy workers, unless, of course, they work in Quebec. I'm not sure who he likes. Well, anyway, that's my rant here, folks. Your turn. What do you think of what O'Toole has got to say? Do you agree with him? Even if you don't agree with the convoy, do you not agree that we should stop calling each other names? Barry is on the phone. Barry, go ahead, please.
Yes, Lowell. I think Trudeau was listening to your show yesterday because he must have heard that, because I'm sure that announcement about him being exposed to COVID came out after your show.
What a wimp. Yes, it did.
What a wimp. What a wimp. I think you're right on with the he's elitist, Lowell. He wants to be an oligarch, just like all the rich rulers of Russia under Putin. He's trying to do the same thing here, I think. All these different things that are going on, that he won't even answer to his own Treasury Board member of the Liberal Party about the $80 million that got away, and the $150 portable hospital that Lavalin was supposed to build that never appeared. He's just, I don't think he's out for the well-being of the common person. It's just
Let me, Barry. You're making a lot of good points. Let me point out another time when the prime minister disappeared, when there were things happening he didn't want to hear. He shut Parliament down in order to avoid more questions concerning the wee scandal. You remember that? He shut
Oh yes,
Parliament down. So
yeah.
I mean, you talk about retreating into his cottage. That's nothing about compared to shutting the entire process of government down during a pandemic.
Lowell, I think the truckers' convoy should, if they don't get any kind of talks with Trudeau or government officials when they're on the Hill, then maybe they should just take a drive up into the Gatineau Hills and clog up the road going to the cottage and let Mr. Trudeau see what it's like to go without groceries or food or supplies for a while.
Oh
Because,
no, I'm sorry. Hold it, Barry. They'd helicopter this in at taxpayers' expense. You know what? God bless you, Barry. You got your head on straight today, my boy. Thank you. Now, John, you're the nerd here. You're the technical whiz. Every time
Proud
I
of it.
can't get on the air, you somehow manage to do it. So the prime minister has locked himself into his cozy little cottage, and apparently cannot meet the truckers. But can he not do this from his cottage? Explain that.
I mean, Lowell, look
What?
how we're set up to do this. Yes. I mean, he's on a Zoom call to talk in the House of Commons. I mean, it's a cell phone in front of him and a designated representative from the truckers, and they have a conversation. And what scares the hell out of me, they talk about, the potential for violence to come out of this thing. Well, the chances of violence coming out of this thing are greatly increased if the prime minister ignores them. This is the biggest protest I will probably ever witness in my lifetime in our nation's capital. He knows it. Everybody knows it. O'Toole has said he's going to meet with them. Other politicians have said they're going to meet with them. And the prime minister has COVID. That's not an excuse. In fact, last night, the reports were the prime minister was going to be in Costa Rica or Puerto Rico or somewhere down south. He's going to sneak out of town. And all of a sudden, the story changed today. And by the way, you asked if we know who the other ministers are. No, I looked at the story on CTV. They did not name the ministers. The prime minister's office has told CTV News that Trudeau's exposure occurred after he appeared alongside three ministers at a press conference on Parliament Hill on Wednesday evening, marking an end to a virtual cabinet retreat. It's all virtual. He lives in a virtual world. He's got cameras in front of him all the time. This is not rocket science, Lowell. If we can do it for you, we can do it for the prime minister of the goddamn country.
Well, I'm glad you see it that way, because that's certainly the way I see it. I mean, this is, the age of technology. If members of parliament can serve their constituents by Zoom or whatever it is, it seems to me that the prime minister could spend, I know he's going to have a busy time in his cozy little cottage there, but maybe he could take 5 minutes to meet with a spokesperson for the truckers and at least listen to some of their concerns. And by the way, I am not the only one, nor is Rex Murphy or you, John Melky, who feels, or Aaron O'Toole, who feels that they have some legitimate grievances.
Yes.
I noticed the Financial Post today. In fact, there are a number of commentators who are saying that this policy on behalf of vaccines and truckers at this time is folly, going to damage the economy of the country. Even the Financial Post says this. So the truckers aren't alone. You're not alone. I'm not alone. And O'Toole is not alone on this. I have to get a word in here for our good friends at Shields.
Yes, let's do that.
Now, I forgot them yesterday, and I apologize. And I've been trying to get in touch actually with Shields, and I finally got the word that they, not primarily, but certainly one of the results of me talking about them is they're, quote, going crazy there. They're busy, which is great news, because
Yes.
I'm going to tell you, it's all very well. I talk about Shields. I talk about the history, how well they have served, the great prices, the great website. But the best way of selling is through word of mouth. So very clearly, some of those people who took my advice, bought their appliance or whatever, mattress, or even their steaks at Shields, they spread the word to others. And that's how it happened. So I'm pleased to see it. As I've said before, folks, if you want to shop local, if as long as the prices are comparable, and they certainly are with Shields, they're very, very highly competitive. Why would you give your money to China? Shop local. And nothing can be more local than a business that's been in there, been in Pakenham since 1947. That's really local. Same family, grandfather, father, and now the son. Shields.ca. Folks, at least have a look at their website. John, how about some text here coming
Oh
in?
boy, 2 days in a row, Lowell, you are overwhelming me here. I can't cut and paste fast enough. All right, we'll begin with Liz, who moments ago said Chrystia Freeland was at the briefing Wednesday afternoon. Where is she today? Patricia is suggesting that I go and assist him with the tech setup. He can address them virtually. Believe me, he's got the team to do it. Like I said,
Let me ask you this, John.
Yeah.
If in fact he doesn't have anybody, he is so destitute that he doesn't have anybody that can help him, would you volunteer your services from Blast the Radio to go to the cozy little cottage and set up a remote system for him? Would you do that, John?
Absolutely, and I will even drive there on my own. I won't even employ a trucker to do it for me. Happy to show up. Happy to make it happen.
Do you have an electric vehicle?
I guess no. No, I drive a damn pickup truck. I'm exactly who he hates.
By the way, you know, right. Yeah, that's right. You even have a blue collar sometimes. I've seen you with a blue collar.
True.
But you know, one of the
Hey man, I own my own business. I'm working for myself. You know, I'm just digging myself a deeper hole here. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Crazy fool.
Darn right.
One of the things that I talked about yesterday, and I've been talking more and more, is how, and this is so frustrating for so many, even though I think it's just now sort of people, it's just beginning to dawn on people. The reason that we have lockdown, certainly with Omicron, is not because it saves lives. That's nonsense. It's because for 20 some odd years, we have allowed our healthcare system from top to bottom to crumble. We spent billions, we spent all of the attention, everything on green energy, windmills, solar panels, electric vehicles. Have you any idea how many billions of dollars we have poured out in subsidies for people, trying to convince people to buy electric vehicles, and of course providing them free electricity, et cetera, et cetera. The billions that we have poured out to convince people to put new windows in, so somehow or other it keeps the I don't know, helps the planet against warming. That this is, I mean, it's all very necessary, but it seems to me that the first thing, by far the most important thing, is the health of our people, the healthcare system. Hey, listen, this idea of 14 and 15-hour wait times in emergency wards, that's been around for 20 years. I went back into some of my logs for CFRA. I've been talking about 14, 15-hour wait times for almost 20 years at CFRA. This business of, 6, 7, 8, 10 ambulances pulling up, and, with two paramedics with each ambulance tied up in the hospital because they can't figure out how to deal with this. This has been going on for almost 20 years. So, and meantime, all the emphasis, all the money has been on green energy. Look at, we're going to hit in Ottawa, as one example, we're going to spend double for electric buses what we would pay for diesel buses. Now, I ask you, in God's name, how is an electric bus going to serve you, the rider, better than a diesel bus? Is it going to be cheaper? No. Is it going to be cheaper to buy? No. Is it going to be cheaper to service? No. Is it going to be faster? No. Is it going to be more reliable? No. So why are we buying electric buses? This is one small example of the emphasis on green energy. Oh, well, because there's no emissions. Wait a minute. How are we going to get the power? There's going to be some emissions from that. Not going to come from wind. Anyway, that's my rant. Go ahead to your text. I am so upset about this. It's just unbelievable how this great country of ours, and every time you look at the ratings of down. Now they're considered to be one of the most corrupt Western nations in the world. How did this happen? Go ahead, John.
Kevin suggests we put Trudeau in the Pope-mobile and drive him to the Hill for isolation. Our health care has been going downhill way before the pandemic, says Mike. You're absolutely right, Lowell, on so many topics. Eileen says, Lowell, I remember hearing you talking about our healthcare system on your show 20-plus years ago.
Absolutely.
Where was a comment here from Anne? She says, I think that too. Think about what sounds better. I have COVID and have to isolate, or I've gone on yet another taxpayer-funded holiday. Very weenie chicken shit, if you ask me. Being in Ottawa, I wish I'd had the nerve to go check out the cottage and take a peek in some windows. Too bad one of the journalists not carrying water for the Liberals could check it out. Oh, I forgot. There aren't any. Bam. And Trudeau has the coward 19. No vaccine for that one, says Barbara. All these electric buses, likely some scam to put money in some Liberals' pockets. That is Peter saying that. Green Alice says, would the emissions from electric buses be less than diesel? Genuinely curious. Well, yes.
Let me just give you one more example of the kind of thing that's driving us crazy. We shop a lot at Canadian Tire. I find them really good, and it's an all Canadian company.
Yep.
But they're a very rich, very well-to-do, very well-run company. So why then did they get, I'm not sure of the exact amount, several $1 million of taxpayers' money to install free charging stations for electric vehicles? So we subsidize, now Ford says he's not going to do it, but he may have to. So we subsidize people, taxpayers' money, to buy an electric vehicle, which most of us can't afford. And then we provide, through all of these various depots, free electrical service for them. Not only do we provide the free electricity, but we pay companies to install them with taxpayers' money, all for green energy. I mean, that money should be going for healthcare instead of buying electric buses, instead of building more charging stations for rich people's cars. We should be hiring more. You know what what should be doing? More personal service workers, so that our seniors in long-term care can get more than one bath a week. We still in this province provide only one bath a week for seniors. With home care, they tell us one of the reasons that the hospitals are jammed is that there are hundreds of people in the hospital who could and should be in the home, but there's nobody available to look after them in the home. Why the hell aren't we buying? Why aren't we spending our money and attention there, for God's sake? If our hospitals are crowded, then pay for some people to look after people in their homes. People would be happier in their own homes. It'd be a hell of a lot cheaper. Apparently, there's a story this morning. It costs a personal worker to help out in the home about $95 a day. It costs over $700 a day to keep them in the hospital. But we're so damn stupid that instead of this, we build a windmill. Go ahead, John, before I just blow up here.
People are saying they get 2 baths a day, and Patricia says public service workers are under PSW, personal services workers are underpaid. Lisa says if he doesn't get a handle on this ever-rising inflation, many will have to go bankrupt. You're absolutely right. I heard Peter Mansbridge's podcast the other night. He had an expert on saying that most of our kids, the overwhelming majority, will never in their lifetime be able to afford a house. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. If they gave a shit, they would have started fixing this ages ago if they cared. They don't care. They don't even care to meet with the truckers. Anyway, I'm taking time away from the good listener who chimed in, and we've got piles and piles and piles of comments. Sean says, COVID has become the new, I can't come and talk to you because I have to wash my hair. Kathy says, I knew O'Toole would step up. Nina says, yep. Aaron said the same thing on a podcast with Michael Barrett. Claude says, about time O'Toole speaks up. Wish he did during election time. Eric says, I'm glad he finally stepped up. Glenn says, they listen, but they don't give a shit. How many expletives has this been on the show today? Shannon says, if we don't support our truckers now, when your store shelves are empty, don't whine about the rotation pack you get from the government later. From farm to table, not without truckers. Hazel says, I knew the moment they announced Trudeau in quarantine that he was hiding. Typical BS. He's a coward hiding out, says Sherry. Let me see. Craig says, I'm sick and tired of rolling over and accepting we should play nice. When we don't agree with a liberal, they call us racist. Give me a break. It's long overdue. We stood up and protested against this despicable liberal government and its pathetic leader. To some of the hundreds of comments coming in for you today, Lowell.
Well, let me just close by saying this. I say, build hospitals,
Yes.
Hire nurses.
Yes.
Give nurses more money.
Yes.
Open schools
Yes.
for more doctors. Okay? Hire thousands more home care and long-term care workers and pay them more. In other words, address the real problem in this country, our outdated, clumsy, inefficient, crumbling healthcare system, top to bottom. Build hospitals, hire nurses, and screw building windmills and buying electric buses. Sick of it. Healthcare first. You can worry about the planet after that. But first of all, let's look after our seniors in long-term care. Let's get people out of the hospitals who should be in their own home. Let's use some common sense here. Address the real problem, a crumbling healthcare system that is falling far behind many other Western nations. Sadly, this country is going to hell in a handbasket if we don't smarten up. The truckers, in their own small way, hopefully may start the process. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.